drivers appine download ராசா ரைட் ஷேரிங் கம்பெனி ARASA.ca என்ற இணையதளத்துக்கு சென்று ராசா டிரைவர்ஸ் ஆப்பினை டவுன்லோட் செய்து டிரைவர்ஸாக வேலை வாய்ப்பை பெறுங்கள். மாதாந்தம் $4000 வரை சம்பாதியுங்கள். வணிக நிறுவனங்கள் ராசா இணையதளத்தின் மூலம் மளிகைப் பொருட்கள் மற்றும் உணவுப் பொருட்களை விற்பதோடு வாடிக்கையாளர்களுக்கு டெலிவரி செய்யலாம். தமிழில் தகவல்களை அறியாளையுங்கள். GTA பற்றி 40 ஆண்டுகள் அறிந்து கொண்டவரும் வீடு விற்பனை துறை ஊடாக மக்களால் அறியப்பட்டவருமான சிவா பிள்ளை. 416-854-0005. Taxi broker licensed by City of Toronto.
Recording in progress.
I have some questions and $1 million questions every time. Whenever I start, I ask for the $1 million question, because the $1 million question is how do you going to make millions? Because we come to this industry for some reason. This is the speech I am doing every single week. Don't get bored, because the reason I'm telling you, you have to think yourself. Look at the mirror and think yourself. Am I doing the right thing in the real estate industry? Am I satisfied for my life? Am I making enough money for this industry? Honestly saying, guys, we are blessed. We are blessed to have this industry. Even the pandemic, our office, you're going to see the Christmas award. Anyway, Christmas award this time is going to be Sunday, December 19th. Sunday, December 19th at Crystal Fountain Banquet Hall. We are doing as other level. 2019 level is a big party, but I'll let you know, you guys, as an agent, right now we have to limit the numbers. I am telling only for the real estate agents, whether we can accommodate the spouses or any other members. We will discuss later on. Our Christmas party is going to be December 19th, Sunday. The reason I said award night, many companies are not doing the award night. They are leaving the head office to handle those one, but we're still doing it and spending money. Even 19, we spent over $50,000 for the award night. This time is definitely going to be at least 50% more because of the halls and everything. The reason we are doing, give you guys some motivation. I have 100 reasons to say I'm not going to have award night. I'm going to leave the award night to the head office, but still, I wanted to do it. Only one reason I want to do it. Give the motivation to the new members, as well as you have to get recognized in the stage for your hard working. This year we're going to have very surprising award night because of the production our agents made. That's going to give you. I have the same license as other person. then why I can make millions in the real estate industry? That kind of feeling you're going to get. Anyway, I'll come back to the topic today, the $1 million question. As I discussed, real estate is a product you can even sell from the pre-construction to the farmland, cottages, any big properties, or even go to the builder and give it to the builders. Find the land and go to the builder and sell it to him. Any level of the product is available. That's mean variety of products are available. Based on your talent, based on your knowledge, based on your math knowledge, based on your skills, you can find which one you're going to work on it. Same time, the clientele from late 20s to until 60 plus, everyone buying a different product. Condos, townhouses, houses, builders, executive houses. After pandemic, people saying even though somebody live in 3,500 square foot double garage houses, they want to have a estate houses, 1 acre land estate houses because of the privacy living, and everybody moving out from the suburbs because of the work from home categories. There are lots of products are there to sell. Lots of age group people's buying the different product. Okay, today we are in the mid-November. We are in the mid-November. That's mean we only have other 8 weeks to achieve for 2021 goals, guys. But at the same time, what you have to do right now, you have to prepare it for 2022. How are you going to prepare it? Your business plan. Your business plan is very important. Your business plan is very important. How are you going to work? How are you going to act for the next year? I invited all our agents for the Betwell Law 5th year anniversary. We hired the person, Randy Taylor, and the speech he said for the success and achievement, success, and those kind of things. And finally, he said only one part: behavior. Your behavior is going to be everything. How do you behave is going to give you everything in your life. That's very true. We all are regular human beings. One person making millions, and one person become a world richest man. And some people are struggling. Why? We had to change our behavior in order to win. Every day, like the day-to-day behavior, we had to change. Success is not designed for one person. Any single one can win this money, especially in our field. This time we have so many people you're going to see the award. When you come in, you're going to surprise how these agents made all this kind of money in our industry. Okay, what you have to do, you have to sign up, make a business plan. Making the business plan is very important. The business plan, how do you going to behave and how do you going to act from January 1st, 2022? And you can even start to give you a training right now. Then only when it's come to New Year, January, and you can fix your mind to continue at least 20 days in advance. You have to start to think about those one and you have to practice those one. Okay, the meaning is a business plan means in your daily life. Business plan is not a real big book. Business plan is in your mind. Business plan is just one sheet is enough to write down what exactly you're going to do. What time you're going to wake up. What are you going to wake up? How many hours you're going to work on your physical exercise and mental training. That's mental training means you can watch so many videos. Even today, I'm going to send you one mindset video. It's an old video. It's in the 2016 video, but still, the mindset is everything, guys. Mindset is everything. If you have the right mindset, you can win this. Anything you can win if you have the right mindset. Every day, you have to have a business plan. Your physical exercise is a must. 24 hours, at least 5 minutes yoga or 5 to 10 minutes exercise is important. After that one, your mental training, that's watching some energetic videos, mindset videos, positive side, positive video, win. There is nothing to lose. That's kind of videos you have to watch it. And your business plan, you have to find how do you going to do the prospecting. Prospecting. What are the kind of prospecting you're going to make? What is your comfort level? And where are you going to get the clients from? We can get the clients from the different kind of product, different kind of places you can go and get the clients. Your friends, family friends, first circles, second circles, farming, cold calling, door knocking, group speaking, open houses, database follow-up. It's a must. Database is a must. You can create the database and follow it up every 2 weeks. Database follow-up. And 24/7, you have to think about how do I going to be success in real estate industry. Please, only here we have an in-house. The specialist is here as well as Zoom. Both we are seeing only 70 people, 70 plus agents are here. I want all these 70 who is listening today. That doesn't mean who are not listening, they are not going to make it. Who are listening today, target yourself. Minimum, I had to make it 250,000, 250,000 for this real estate industry. Money for your money. You make money. If you don't want it, give it to the charities for the country, people who are in any countries. If you are from Sri Lanka or India or any other countries who want to give the charity, but don't be home, don't sleep, because you have the potential to make money, guys. You have the potential to make money. Don't miss out. This is this kind of country, this kind of field we are in right now. There's no reason anybody make less than 250 in the real estate industry. That's what I would say. All right. Before Rafael is here, before I go to him, I have some questions. The agent sent me the questions. I have to answer that one because I will be here only up to 10:20 today. Selva going to continue that one. And there are some questions. If you have any questions, please come out and ask me the questions. I like to answer it for you guys. And the question is here. So someone sent me the question. The first question they sent me for the condition expiring and extension. For example, he sent a message. Condition expire on last Wednesday, and he sent the amendment to the. He's working with our agent working the buyer side. He sent the amendment to the listing agent at Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock and asking for the extension of the mortgage extension. And he called me around 11 o'clock and said he didn't get back the amendment. Then what will happen? I said, for example, if you have a condition, that condition expiry time, you have to waive it to make the deal firm, or else you have to get the amendment signed by the both parties before the deadline. Again, I repeat the word. If we have a condition expiring on the day, say Wednesday condition expiring, either you have to waive the condition before 12 o'clock, normally 12 o'clock, before 12 o'clock, 11:59, you had to waive the condition, or else you have to make the amendment signed by the both parties in that day. If you are sending the amendment and waiting, you are sending the amendment, that means you feel like I sent the amendment to other party. That doesn't mean you did the right job. No, because they don't give the amendment the next day. That's mean you losing the deal. Hard to get the deal these days with the buyer side. In that case, learn, understand. I mean, the condition expiring date is a date. Sending the amendment very evening at 6 o'clock and you blaming other agent, not going to help. The second question, same person said, the closing date changes. Closing date changes can be two kinds. One, you make an amendment and change the closing date, and you're asking the lawyers, both lawyers, to negotiate for the closing date changes. Okay. He asked me what is the difference between the lawyers getting the closing date change, and some lawyers are telling me just go and talk to the agent and you make an amendment, and some of them are doing the closing date change in their own. What is the difference? Okay, for example, if you make the purchase sale agreement, you are fixing one date as a closing date. That's a closing date in the contract. That's a closing date in the contract. For example, if you make an amendment, for example, November 1st is the closing date, and you are making an amendment on or before the closing date, and both parties agree from our agent side and real estate company side, both parties agree to extend the closing date until November 18th. That means your original contract, we are moving from November 1st to November 18th. That means the original contract's closing date is changed. In other hand, the lawyers are changing the closing date. November 1st to, say for example, lawyer giving another 2 weeks, say now until November 18th, same closing date, I'm fixing it. That means the lawyers, when they change the closing date, they still keep the closing date as November 1st, and they're giving the extension with the cost of the buyer. Am I right, Selva? Yes. They're giving the extension of the cost of the buyer. That means mortgage interest and the property taxes, any utilities involved. If it is a condo, it's a maintenance fees is involved. Any other cost, they can ask any other cost more than that. It's a nice contract and a decent lawyers, and not the decent lawyers. If they are the good ground, they can give only minimum charges. They can even charge more up to their side. But at the same time, the closing date reminder November 1st is not the new closing date, because you had to pay for the penalties. and what are the costs involved. But again, if you are a seller side, I advise leave it to the lawyers. In that case, lawyers can put the condition saying that one deal doesn't close at one point. When they extend to 1 or 2 weeks extension, they can ask the extra deposit to make the deal stronger, and they can ask if the deal doesn't close it without any mutual release or court order, they can forfeiting the deposit. Even they can ask even the deposit, not only the further deposit, both deposit. They can do so many other things. I advise to do it to the lawyers for the closing date change. Well, it's a multiple transfer. Sorry, multiple representation. Both are in the office. You guys know each other, and you do the regular amendment. There's nothing wrong with that one. Other question, the agent sent me last Monday about the assignment of agreement. Do I need to? What is the difference between assignment of agreement and the amendment of agreement? For example, assignments means you are buying from the builder, not necessarily a builder, but you can even have it from the regular resale transaction, can come to assignment too. But we always feel like assignments are from the builder's assignment. If the buyer, the original buyer, buy the property from the builder, and before the closing the transaction, you're going to give it to somebody else. The government is lenient, and because the condo project is always takes 5 years pipelines, and then somebody buy the property. After the property, they may lose the job. They got sick. One person got sick, or job transfer. Even somebody moved the country. So many things can happen. In that case, the government of Canada, they are lenient. Actually, they are giving the chance for the original buyer, rather than losing the money, you can transfer the contract to some other person. That means assignment of agreement. They are assigning the agreement, but that's become as a profit motive right now. But at the same time, amendment and agreement. That's the question is here. Rather than paying the money to get the assignment of agreement, instead of that one, can I change the name as an amendment? Yes, it's possible. This is possible, but at the same time, there are some tricky parties there too. Assignment of agreement, builder is transferring completely under your name, and the new assignee going to deal with the builder, but still assignee doesn't close the transaction. Builder has the rights to go to assigner and those kind of things there. Mostly amendments come within the family members. The husband buying and adding the daughter or anything, and they're changing the name. Mostly when it's come to the amendment side, they're keeping the original name and they're adding some names. That's coming under the amendment. In the Revenue Canada side, HSC regulation, you have to have the original buyer has to apply for the HSC rebate, or else assignment of agreement from the builder. We should have to get the HSC rebate from either owner-occupied rebate or the rental rebate. Now CRA also allowing right now for the amendment under the condition for the family members only. If the family members make the amendment, yes, you can still eligible for the assignment of agreement. Sorry, the rebate portion you can do it. That's one of the recent change for a year ago. We can do that one. But if you have any specific question, let's go case by cases. Just give me a call and I will explain. And I have other question about the PREC Corporation. PREC Corporation, government allow for the PREC Corporation since last October. I believe October, they allow the PREC Corporation. I did the PREC Corporation many times in the seminar, but still there are some new agents here. Yesterday, 2 agents came. They were sitting with me and discussing with me the PREC Corporation, and they asked me the questions too. Okay, the PREC Corporation means Personal Real Estate Corporation. As like other profession, doctors corporation came on 2004, I believe, and the lawyers also 2004 or 2005. That's been government allowing the individual, in order to have their own personal name, register the corporation, getting the income from that particular corporation. That's different field they allow, and the real estate field, we got the opportunity from last year November. That means you had to register the PREC Corporation, Under the regular, it's not a regular article of corporation. Article of corporation clauses are changed. If you had to know to the person who know how to write the article of corporation, because reason the regular corporation, you can have 1 to 10 directors. The decision making by the minimum 2 directors has to make the decision and those kind of things. But PRC corporation, you are the one and only director. You cannot have anybody else as a director. As well as a restricted corporation, the income supposed to come only for your real estate commission income. But the question asked somebody yesterday, after PRC corporation, my income coming under the, that's a question somebody raised it yesterday. After the PRC corporation, I'm getting the income in my corporate name. Can I use the business card under the corporate name? Sometimes, say, for example, Xavier Home, for example, he cannot use it. Real estate still regulated by the RICO as a personnel, but the commission only is an exception coming under. You can get the commission under the PRC corporation, but the PRC corporation name you cannot advertise. Any reason you cannot advertise the PRC corporation. PRC corporation you cannot put it in your business card. Your name supposed to be your legal name, whatever you registered in the RICO. Your legal name, the first name, you can shorten out with the permission of RICO. Other than that, nothing else you can use for the business card. Again, somebody asked me for the PRC corporation for the award side. Last year, I got the half of the year I received the money from my own name. Other money went to the PRC corporation. How do you calculate the award? Calculating the award, we are putting together both. Either you receive the money by the PRC corporation or you receive the money by under your name. We are calculating as under your name category. You don't need to worry about those ones. And that's the way we're going to calculate for the award. The same time, somebody asked me, award, are you including the HST for the award? Yes, our office all the time we did the HST. Whatever the gross commission you receive in your hand, including HST, that's what we are following. But there's a following. That's what I'm going to continue the same way. Including the money you receive, including the HST, then the award calculation is going to be under the including HST side. Another question, the same group of people asked me yesterday, was sitting with me and asked me for the PRC corporation. I told them, come to the Zoom, I will explain more with everybody. Those two boys are working under the IT department and working around 100,000 plus. And they did only 2 deals, and they are planning 2 to 3 deals extra. Then I told them very first day, if you are working IT and making $100,000 and make 5 deals, that's another 100,000. That's the luxury of money you're going to enjoy in the real estate industry. And yesterday they come to open the account. I advise them not to open the account for the PRC corporation, because the PRC corporation is you pay the less tax, but still your income is already $100,000 income. Even though you move your money to PRC corporation, even though you keep the money without taking out for the PRC corporation, yes, you can pay 15%, 50.5% tax. So if you have only one corporation, 12.5% tax. At the same time, if you want to take the money out, I know, as I mentioned many times, from the PRC corporation to personal, first 30,000 plus dividend tax, there is no taxes. But if you already have an income, you have to pay the tax for that one too. That means the person only full-time realtor, you're taking the first $30,000 for yourself, there is no taxes involved. But at the same time, you already have $100,000 income, or even 65 is more, you're maximizing the CPP side, okay? If you are maximizing the CPP side, if we have a corporation and you receive the income under your personal side, you don't need to pay $650 to create a corporation, and your corporate tax is expensive. I do free for our personal tax for everybody, but the corporate tax we can't afford to do it because it's the program cost alone is cost. Corporate tax is going to cost at least $500 minimum. In this case, I advise them not to start. Before you start the PRC corporation, consult with the accountant, or if you want, come and can advise you based on the commission. PRC corporation is a tax shelter. It's a very good tax. You can differ in the tax. You don't need to buy the RRSP or anything. You can keep the money in the corporation, but at the same time, everybody is different based on your income, how much money you make. It's not a mandatory for everyone should open the PRC corporation and get the income from PRC corporation. That's the question they asked me. And I think there's one more question, guys. Just bear with me a minute. Okay, for the commercial side, commercial, can I buy the commercial property with 10% down payment? Answer is yes and no. The reason answer is yes and no. What kind of commercial property you are buying it? For example, if it is a condo commercial, if you are buying the condo commercial less than $1 million, and you going to occupy that condo commercial, yes, the banks are allowing 10% down payment, and you can buy the condo commercial. You don't need to have 30% down payment. If it is as for my knowledge, I'm not a commercial mortgage broker. You can ask Kanna or anybody else for the commercial mortgage side. But the question is, can I buy it with the 10%? Yes, you can buy with the 10%. Don't leave your deal. Don't tell anybody you have to have a 30% down payment to buy the commercial product. You can get the commercial for 10%, especially condo commercial and the owner occupying condo commercial, not for the investment purpose. Okay. And other side, maybe we started this topic. Another side, residential apartment. Residential apartment, yes, even though you're buying the residential apartment, any amount, but the 15% down payment, CMSCH insurance is there for the commercial residential multiplex. If somebody have the money and they want to buy it, don't limit yourself. Ask question to different peoples. Before you ask question, know the profile of the person, whether he know the topic or not, and ask the person and work on it. But don't limit yourself. For the commercial, you need 30% down payment, and some multi-residents are falling under the commercial, and different things. Okay, guys, it's almost getting 10 o'clock. We are looking forward for Raphael to come in, and he's going to talk about landlord and tenants. Please make use of the time. Come, Selva. So as I said, who joined later, Selva is one of the assets for our company.
One more question.
One more question. Okay, just Mahesh.
About the closing date change.
Yeah.
So the file go to the lawyer.
Yeah.
So then amendment at least
Before the closing date.
before the closing date, we can do it.
You can do the amendment. If you do the amendment, the thing is the closing date, you officially change the closing date. They send the amendment to both lawyers, but before the closing date. After the closing date, only the lawyers can do it because the official offer expired. After the official offer expiry, you can make any amendment after that. Am I right, Silva? Yes. Before you had to do it before the expiry date, you can make an amendment if both party agrees. Why not? And if not, leave it to the lawyers. I advise the other way around, selfish way. If you are a listing agent, leave it to the lawyers. If you are a buyer's agent, try to make amendment yourself because we are here. We are here with the both sides. Okay, Mahesh.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay.
I have
Okay.
one more question.
Sure. No, go ahead. Yeah.
The builders.
Yeah.
The development charge. Some of the advertisement I saw that the 1 bedroom 7,500 and some of them says development charge 10,000 for 2 bedrooms. What is the difference?
I repeat this question.
That is
For the Zoom members, I repeat the question. Mahesh is asking about the development charges. He said he sees some ad from the builders. They're saying the development charges for the 1 bedroom 7,500 and 2 bedroom for 10,000. Why is different, and what is the development charges? That's what he's asking. Okay, the development charges, as for my knowledge, development charges, the builder when they develop, start from expanding the street because the traffic studies, expanding the street to bringing the say railway line is crossing the road. What they had to do, they had to make a bridge for the rail pass by. Then only the traffic can easily flow. And now,
go ahead. That's fine.
Now is for example downtown Toronto. The special development charges came 2018 for the Gardiner development, Gardiner restructuring the Gardiner Expressway. The development charges can be whatever they need to do in that area. The regular development charges, schools. For example, 200 houses are they going to build. They need a Catholic school. They need a government school. Then who's going to pay? The owners who is going there, they have to pay. In this case, development charges means what they need to develop that area, they are charging the builder. Each and every units they allow for the builder, they charging how much the development charges builder has to pay. But the same time, what happens sometimes, the builder, when he apply for the city, for the development side, but at the same time, he doesn't give, before the approval by the city, they are selling the units. Then they don't know exactly how much the development charges going to be the particular unit. But at the same time, they only have estimated numbers. In this case, they already include the development charges in the price, but still, plus they're saying they're capping out based on the square foot. Your question, you asked me 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom, what's the difference?
No,
1 bedroom.
It's right, but it's adding one more. Maybe the buyer, how much, at least if they advertisement like that, the buyer, how much they have to, end of the day, maybe they have to pay.
Okay, his question is moving a little bit different. Okay, I finish this one and go to his question back again. The developer charges, as I said, city need to develop the city. We have to pay for it. It's our part. Government going to build a school. Whose cost? Our cost. That's our obligation. It's our country. We are buying the new property. The builder, they are charging the builder to get the money. All the area people has to go to the school and road. Everything is our side. That's the right thing. They're charging the development charges. We had to develop our own country. But the same day, his question for the capping side, yes, if the builders, you can cap the development charges. That means anything costs more than the certain limit that the builder going to pay himself, and for ourselves, we can better to do when you have an agreement. Better to have an agreement. Go to the lawyer. We don't have that practice in Toronto, but downtown Toronto and different group of people, they always go with the builder's agreement and give it to the lawyer and ask the lawyer to pay the money to read and get the summary of the agreement and see the development charges and send the letter to the developers, say the capping the developer charges, again the reconfirming with the builder for the development charges. In that case, the development charges, as like Mahesh, your question, first question, 1 bedroom maximum 7,500, even though the development charges pay higher, builders has to pay from his own profit. And the 2 bedroom, and that's the way they're going to do it for the development charges. You can cap the development charges. And your second question, Mahesh, can you repeat again?
That's the end of the day, how much they got, the 7,500.
Yes, the end of the day, he said how much I am going to end up paying. End of the day, how much you end up paying? The maximum you cap it for 7,500, and say 2 bedroom 10,000. And maybe I can share one story. Kind of about one assignment from somebody else. The builder said the development charges is about 28,000.
Yeah,
28,000 development charges. Then he said, I don't want it because I'm only taking over from somebody else's assignment. I don't want it. And he fight with through the lawyers. Finally, he paid less than 2,000.
1,200.
1,200. The development charges, there is a Bowmanville builder. Bowmanville builder came down from 28,000 to 1,200. He voluntarily came himself. He was expecting to pay 10,000 at least. The development, anything you can bargain, but only thing, the problem we have, our agent. Don't think my kids are lawyers. That's the reason I'm supporting the lawyer. Lawyers charging very low commission, very low fees. We are real estate agent making one deal 30,000, 25,000. Lawyers charging only $1,000, guys. Even reading the builder's document, 50 to 100 pages. At least pay $500 to get the summary of the agreement and mark it out. What are the summaries there? And either detailed version or short versions, get the summary and follow from there. In that case, you save lots of money and you can say a lot of things. Am I right, Salva? You are standing here.
I always say that.
You always say that because the lawyer's side, 200 pages. They even one of the Facebook message. I'm part of the Ontario Legal Council question answers real estate side. You guys also go join. I can put it in the WhatsApp group today. The good question and answers come every single day. But what lawyer saying, he already charged $200 and 207 pages. You can go back and read whatever say. $200 only 207 pages. And he charged only $200 and he spent 2 hours to review and half an hour to write. Then other lawyers are saying that, but don't go less than $1,000. What I mean, as a realtor, please advise. If somebody buys from the builder, take the paperwork to go to the lawyers and read, understand what is development charges, what they're going to do, and different directions. Okay, today time I shouldn't waste too much. The Selva is here. I had a very easy time.
No problem.
Again, everybody you guys know, because everybody go through phase 3 classes, as well as now the MLS training every week. You guys seen Selva more than me now, but still Selva's senior agent, and he helped me so much hard. Even with my own two tenants, he kicked them out, and my cousin tenants last week, and he did lots of deals. Guys, it's the right time. This is the time for you guys. Please ask question and make use of it. Learn. Thank you, Selva.
Yes. Thank
I'll
you.
be here only until 10:20 today. I had to move. Selva,
Yes.
again, thanks.
Yes, Silvane, because this topic was supposed to be the rewards and risk of being a landlord.
That's right, yeah.
So it's like playing good cop, bad cop.
Yes.
You know, when the police arrest somebody, the two policemen will play, one will play the bad cop and one will play the good cop to try to get the truth. One will say, if you don't tell me, you will be in trouble and all that. Other guy says, did you do something? You know, we can work. So because they play this game to get something out of
That's a nice starting. That's a nice way of starting. Yeah? That's a nice way of starting.
You
Yeah.
know, that's how they do it. And I tell people all the time, if they ask you something, shut up. Don't say nothing.
You're the good guy, bad guy.
But it doesn't matter because the good guy will be the bad guy for you. Because the good guy, you work at this, what do you call, pickle barrel? Yeah, I work pickle barrel. Oh, how many beer you drink? Oh, 2 beer. Shit. It's recorded.
That's it.
You know, the bad guy is the good guy is the bad guy for you.
So the way to get the messages.
So,
Yeah.
shut up. Don't say. And if you in an accident, I'm just telling you, I mean, it's not related to this, but as you said, I go to courts as an interpreter. I learn a lot. I see that's where
Yes,
I learn my legal knowledge comes from, because I see firsthand the top judges, how they decide and what happens with our people and what they do, stupid things. Right. One of the things is if you're in an accident, you know, the police will take you one side, the driver, the passenger to the other side, and get stories from both sides. And the passenger says something, the
Driver say something.
driver says something, and they contradict each other. And then, because you don't know what they are, so both sides don't have to say anything.
That's the way you're starting today, the landlord tenant side.
Yes.
Yes, before I leave, one more word. The training center is open. Please come. Today you can see if you are sitting here, how much you can interact for both our conversation rather than the Zoom. I encourage you guys to come and get involved. Thanks, Selva.
And that's why I say, you know, being a landlord is a good thing, right? I want to say the good things about being a landlord.
Yeah.
And what I see is the bad side of being a landlord. When they come to me, it's not because they are making money. They're losing money or they want to get rid of something.
Yeah.
When they sign a lease, when they are going to make money, the tenant is going to pay them rent, and it's become a business. That's why a lot of people want to be landlord. They want to be landlord, not to make money. So you explain why being a landlord is good, and I will say how you should be a landlord.
Yeah, because real estate investors, we are real estate agent, real estate investors. We are encourage everybody to buy the house and rent it out. Even though government doesn't like it, now government point of view, invest somewhere else rather than the residential property. Residential property, every Canadian is supposed to have one to live. If you want to have 10 houses, that's not the government side. But
Government is not saying don't invest.
No.
Government is saying don't speculate.
don't speculate. Yes.
Don't
Yeah.
treat it as a stock market.
That's right, yeah.
You know, they don't want because it gets out of hand sometimes,
That's right, yes.
right? So
Yes.
speculation leads to more speculation.
As a good cop, I could say, guys, encourage everybody to buy more properties and make a passive income. If you are a real estate agent, my broker record, I work under one company until I start. Rupert de Castro, Century 21, Camden. I worked from 95 until 2002. 7 years I worked, and before I started off with, you always say, if you are a good real estate agent, buy one property for yourself. Otherwise, don't say you are a good agent. Don't say you are a good investor. That honestly, Selva, he's still alive. I always go to him every Christmas and get blessing from him. Until now, I go to him, and he always said, if you think you are a good agent, buy one for yourself. Buy one for yourself. Buy one for yourself. That's mean real estate investment is good, guys. Being a landlord is a power. That's my side, and Selva can show you other things.
Okay. So I don't know what you guys want to know. You know, I can go on about landlord and tenant board is a very wide field. You can talk about it all the time. But I think it is the basics. Being a landlord is you got to know what are the obligations of a landlord, right? If you drive a car, you need to know what your obligations are. If you need to know what your obligation towards your tenant. And number one, I think most of the time the landlords make a mistake is when they select a tenant. Number one, you've got to screen your tenant. That's where it starts. If you get a good tenant on the first day, your life is set. You have no problem. To get a tenant, that's where you screen. And the rule of thumb is their income should be 3 times the rent.
Oh, 3 times, yeah.
Yeah, if your rent is 2,000, look for somebody or couple or somebody who at least makes 6,000 or more. Because other than the credit score, other than anything else you look at, it's because that's where they're going to pay you rent. They could have been like, bad people, they did all this nonsense, but now they are making good money, they are going to pay the rent. If the rent is too high to the income, they are going to become bad tenants straight away. That is one of the reasons, because people don't screen their tenants properly. And there is a reason for it, because if it remains vacant, then it costs them every month and they are very anxious to get rid of it. That's where the problem starts. So once the tenant gets in, a bad tenant gets in, he finds ways and means of not paying the full rent. Then the only way he can stop paying full rent is by complaining about cockroaches, complaining about leaks, complaining about that, complaining about mold. That's where they start, because they know if they make these complaints, the landlord is forced to do some repairs, and they will claim, oh, because I had mold, I want 25% off for this month. I have rats, so they try to reduce the rent as much as they can. That is the problem. So screening is number one. Look for, and if you screen too much, it could be hard, right? If you screen too much, your tenant pool will shrink. Yes or no? Because the most of the tenants may not be the top tenants. So it's a balance. And also when you screen, what are the questions you are allowed to ask, right? There are certain questions you should not be asking. The marital status, how many children, did they get welfare? Those are things that are no, because those are human rights violations. So you've got to be very careful in what you ask. Is somebody asking a question there? I can't hear the question anyways. Kannan? No. So anyway, so basic questions like what's your income, where do you work, your consent to check credit report, those things you can ask. And then how do you refuse an application? Because most of the time you collect applications, and then how do you say no to somebody? You got to be very careful when you say no, right? So because if you say something wrong, like, I don't like because you have 3 kids, or I don't like because you're single, then you get into trouble. So just don't say why you are not giving. Just say, I am still collecting applications. I need time. You as a landlord can take 3 months to decide whom you want to sell. So just say, send me the application. And if they call you, you say, I'm still checking. I'm not decided. I am waiting for more applications. So this way they get tired and they go away. And when you say, oh, we found a suitable candidate. So you didn't reject them for something. Don't ever say that you rejected somebody for something. It's better. Just delay, play with them. Now, after that, number one issue is, what do you do if somebody doesn't pay you rent? What are you going to do? Right? That's number one. Right? Most of the time, landlords wait a long time before the tenant had stopped paying rent to do anything. They just wait. Because the tenant comes in, the typical tenants pays the first month rent, pays the second month rent, And third month, they start paying half rent. And they say, oh, I have a problem. My child got sick. Right? Same, you hear the story, I hear that all the time. So the landlord says, oh, I see, okay, pay me half. Then they pay you half. And then end of the month, now they have to pay the following month rent and the half. They don't. Then they give a check. They slowly start playing the game. And then eventually the arrears adds up to 3-4 months sometimes. By the time landlord realizes, oh, this guy is playing game with me. And then they start acting. So already you're 4 months into the hold. You didn't do anything for 4 months. Now you come back. And during the pandemic, the landlord and tenant board is delayed. Normally they are delayed. Now during the pandemic, they are much delayed. Right? Now we start the application process. So I suggest that the very first time the tenant is not paying full rent, start issuing N4. That's the first. The forms which just start from N are called notices. That's why they call them Ns. And those are notices that are issued by landlord, except N9, which can be issued by the tenant. Most of the N notices starting with N are given by landlord to the tenant. And they are called notices. And unfortunately, these notices, or fortunately, these notices need not be signed by the tenant. It is just a notice to the tenant. You give notice. So a lot of landlords ask me, does the tenant have to sign somewhere? I say, no, it's a notice you give to the tenant. And doesn't mean the notice is everything. That's the first step. So on the first, they have to pay rent. You can give a notice on the second if they didn't pay. And if the tenant wants to ask you why you're giving me a notice, I'm only 1 day late, or I'm going to pay you, I told you, you say, I have to do as a landlord, but if you pay me, this notice is invalid, because notice itself says the landlord has to give 14 days for the tenant to void this notice, right? So within 14 days of giving a notice and the tenant pays the full rent, the notice is void. But this is the originating document. It's a simple document, but you see a lot of mistakes in this. When they come to me, and sometimes they issue their own N4, and they come to me and say, this N4 is not valid. So if you start a process with a wrong N4, 6 months or 4 months or 8 months, sometimes when I go to a hearing and this notice is invalid, the adjudicator is going to kick my case out. Number one, he says this notice is wrong. So if this notice is not right, cancel that notice, issue a new notice, the proper notice. What are the things I see going wrong in these notices? The calculation of arrears rent. Very important. The number that you put in, the amount that you put in is very important. That's number one. Those are critical mistakes. If you make critical mistakes, the notice will be invalid. The 14 days, how did you count the 14 days? The day you give the notice by hand is not included in the 14 days. So you got to add, that day is not counted, then you add 14 days. Normally I add a couple of days more. I'm kind of, let it go, 3-4 days, who cares? It's not going to change anything. It is better to be safe, because the day you prepare, you go there, the guy is not there. You have to come back. So if you add 3-4 days, it allows for that. Or you can mail it. You have to add 5 days. So 19 days. Only after the 19 days, you can file an application called L1. L1s are the one you file with the board. They cost you $186 if you file online, $201 if you mail it. Once an L1 is filed, the board now knows there's an arrears rent. Then only they will schedule an application here. But the tenant can void the L1 if they pay the arrears before the hearing. Right? Or they can come to the hearing and ask for some sort of payment plan. Now, the law says in Ontario right now is everyone should have a payment plan. When you issue an N4 notice, suppose your arrears rent is 5,000 and your monthly rent is 2,000. What I normally do is when I issue an N4 with an arrears of 5,000, I also write and say, my dear Mr. Smith, your current arrears as of today is 5,000. Your December rent is coming due on December 1st. The landlord would accept your payment December rent on December 1st and an arrears rent of $1,000 on December 15th. And on every month after that, you pay rent on time and you pay the arrears on the 15th. So within 5 months, you catch up with your arrears. Now, why? Because the government said you got to do it. As a landlord, you got to give a payment plan.
Any form in there? Or
No form. But they say it can be, but it should be an arrangement. They're going to ask you at the hearing. When I go to the L1 and the arrears is 10,000, the adjudicator can turn around and say, by the way, did you give them a payment plan? Were you reasonable with the tenants? Right? So if you start at the start, you do this. When you go, yeah, I gave a payment plan. This is what, but they never adhere to the payment plan. But don't make a payment plan where it says, oh, your arrears on December, pay me December rent on December 1st, and my payment plan is you pay the arrears on December 1st. That's not a payment plan. Right? Be reasonable, right? We like to kind of, show ourselves as good people. We are reasonable. We are doing what the right thing is, right? That's very important. So N4 is the easiest way to get a tenant out because the landlord and tenant board says nobody can stay for free. They have to pay rent. But doesn't mean that they will kick them out straight away. So you got to give them some time. And if they find the arrears, now I see arrears like 49,000, 50,000. There's no chance of getting money out. And the other problem that I have with these 50,000 arrears is the maximum amount that the board can order is 35,000, unfortunately. Their limits are the same as small claims court. So they can't give an order for more than 35,000. So now sometimes to get an order from the board, you have to eat up the balance and say, yes, Madam Chair, I know it's 50,000, but it's okay. The landlord is forgiving the 15,000 because otherwise you have to go to Superior Court. It costs you a lot of money. So that's why one of the things, don't get your arrears come too much. They easily add up. Because if you delay giving the N4 and the arrears is already $3,000 rent, you waited 4 months. When you come to me, it's 12,000. Then I file to the board, we give the N4, we start doing it, another 3 months rent. See how fast it accumulates because the rents are too high around nowadays. The board didn't anticipate these things coming. Unfortunately, I can't. Is there a way they can ask me questions now?
Yeah, they can.
They can?
Okay. Yeah, it's available for all.
Yeah. If there are any questions, just let me know in this topic. So it's easier for me. So that's the number one. N4, L1, start doing it immediately. Another reason why you issue N4 to a tenant on the second day after you give the rent is due is because, yes, I'm coming there. So the more N4s you give, we can give an N8. N8 is for repeated late payment of rent. And that cannot be voided. So, which means that N4, when they pay the rent, they can stay. But if you give every time, they are late every month. Now you record it by giving an N4. They were late, you gave, they paid. You keep the N4. Because at the end of this tenancy, after 1 year, they're going to finish the lease, right, term. At that time, you can say, on 1 year lease, you were late 8 times. So I'm going to the board and say, I want evicted this tenant. Because you know, as you know, in Ontario, the tenancy is for life. The tenant can live for life. So unless you document and keep those enforced, because if they are late 1 time, the board is going to say, forget it. But if you accumulated about 8, the board is going to say this tenant is no good. And then when you go to the board with an N8 and an L2 application, they're going to say, okay, from now, if you don't pay the rent on time, you're out. So that's another reason why I say, even though they pay back, keep the info on documenting. Because within 14 days, if they pay, it's no good. Yes, we can send by mail at 5 days. I add normally another 5 days. Who cares? Doesn't info has to be consecutive for N8? No, N8, you have to have a collection of infos, then you can give an N8. If you're late only once, N8 is like, what does the board thinks a repeated late payment of rent? I think they are looking at about 6 to 8 times. If they are late 2 times, everybody has a problem, right? We all have a problem. Do we pay our credit cards on time? I guess most of us do, except Kannan pays on time, right? So,
I believe Rajita
yeah, I
has
can
one.
see. I see that. I answered that question. Yes. Yeah, I did answer that question. So,
And also, I believe someone has their hand up. Rajita?
yes.
Rajita, if you're online, you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Yeah, he had answered already that question. I was asking, is there any time limit for to give the eviction notice? And he already answered that by the time I was raising hand.
No problem. Okay. So that's, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, no problem.
Sorry, I think I missed something. I missed the email or the text part. Did you answer that? I'm sorry, I missed that. So can we email or text?
Okay, I'll come back to that. Email or text is something I will tell you.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah, yes,
So-
give the payment plan, yes.
We can write in the paper.
Yeah, just like a
They
form.
have to agree with that,
So here's what it is.
the tenant.
What, okay, the question comes in, a lot of us is saying, you know, because we are real estate agents, we always get documents signed. Our client has to sign, the other agent has to sign, whoever it is, everybody has to sign our documents. So we feel that the document is not valid if somebody didn't sign. That's our mentality, right? Unfortunately for us, the N4 need not be signed. It's a notice. You give it. And the landlord and tenant board specifies how you can give the notice.
I asked the
Yeah,
payment.
yeah, I'm going to tell you that. The same thing, I'm going to tell you that. So let me finish with the N4 notice. How you gave it, right? Because a lot of people ask me signature, right? So the same thing you asked me, do they have to sign? So what I'm saying is, I go and give an N4 to the client or the tenant. I give the N4 and I give a letter with the payment plan. Dear Mr. Smith, as I said, it's simple. It doesn't have to be very elaborate. Put it, your arrears up to today is 5,000. Your rent is coming up on December. Pay me the rent on time on December. Pay me the arrears on December 15, January 15, February 15, blah, blah, blah. Thank you very much. Otherwise, I have to go to courts and fight you. Boom, boom, boom. Right? And then add that to the notice, right? N4 notice, go and give it to the tenant. Now, if the tenant is not there, you can put it in the mailbox. Now, the new subdivisions, unfortunately, the mailbox is not at the door. So you can't open their mailbox. It's privacy because the mailbox belongs to them. So knock on the door, you can give it. Another way of doing it is sending it by mail. I prefer sending it by mail. That way, there's no problem, right? And don't send it by registered mail. We again tend to send it by, no. Because registered mail, they have to go and sign and pick it up. So if they don't go and sign, you have no proof that they received it. So the best way is to mail it by ordinary mail. What I do is, when I do it for my clients, I do because I as a representative, only 2 people can send notices, by the way. The owner or their legal representative. Nobody else. No property management company, no real estate agent, nobody. Because if you sign, the notice is invalid. So it should either be the landlord or his legal representative. So when I do it by mail. I give the notice 14 plus I add another couple of days, like not for, and I mail it by regular mail. What I do, like in my office, I have a mailing machine. I go and put it, it'll stamp it. The date stamp, it'll date stamp when the mail is going out. I take a copy of it. And then I put it in the mail. I come to my office. I go to the email and send an email to tenant. By the way, I am representing the landlord. I just mailed you the N4. Here is the copy of the N4, courtesy copy of the N4. Here is the copy of the mail. I put it in the mail to you. Right? So what I have done? I have done 2 things. I have done the legal way. I had to send it by mail. I put it. And I also send them a courtesy by email saying, look, I sent it to you. Right? And this is what I sent. And here's the proof that I mailed it to. That way it's documented. It's better than registered. Now, that's when I say, when you screen. When you screen, one of the things you need to get is ID, email addresses, and get consent from the tenant that they will receive notices by email. If they don't consent, you can't give officially notices by email. You give N4. Okay, the question here is, when you said 14 days, do we have to wait for it 14 days before we give N4? I think your question is, when do I give an N4? I said, if the rent is due on the 1st, if they don't pay the rent on the 1st, give the N4 on the 2nd. And then you have to wait 14 days before you file an application with the board. If they don't pay you within 14 days, that's what it is. Anyway, so because the email is important, because the landlord and tenant board made some changes on Bill 184, which came into full effect last month. So before, if the tenant moved out and they had an area, let's say you issued an N4, the tenant didn't pay, you filed an L1, you went to the board, and then at the board said you have to pay $18,000 in arrears, and the board will give in the eviction notice another standard orders are 14 days. So if you go to the board and the tenant has still not paid, and the area, let's say when we go to the hearing, the arrears is $18,000. The Madam Chair or Mr. Chair is going to say, if you don't pay the rent by this date, full rent, on the next day by the date. So if let's say we go to a hearing on Monday and the tenant is not paid, 18,000 arrears, the board is going to say, we're going to send you a standard order. And that is 2 weeks from that day, if the tenant didn't pay. So 2 weeks from Monday, say December 10th. If the tenant doesn't pay you the whole arrears by December 10th, on December 11th, the landlord can go to the sheriff and file for eviction. That'll cost you anywhere from $500 to $600, right? Depending on mileage, depending on Oshawa, Toronto, Vaughan, it varies. Vaughan is Newmarket Court. So you got to know where the sheriff's office is for your unit. So they will tell you, you pay the money, and they will tell you, we are going to come and evict the tenant on such and such a day, right? And you will have to arrange a locksmith to go and change. The tenant, before the sheriff comes, he can pay the whole arrears and stop the eviction. But he can only do it once. that type of stopping, he can only do it once. Again, another time, he cannot stop it. That's the law, right? So suppose the tenant moves out before the sheriff comes, because nowadays the sheriff is taking 2 to 3 months to come. The landlords know that, tenants know that. So even if they get an eviction order on Monday, and eviction order is not happening on Monday, it's the member has to sign and send it to you. So he's going to take another 3 weeks. Sometimes I waited for 6 months to get an order. Right? And when the order came, there's another story, I'll tell you that. But so the tenants know, even when the order comes, then we have to go to the sheriff. And so I can only go to the sheriff after December 10th, right? So December 11th, then they know Christmas, sheriff, there is in Toronto, there's only 4 sheriff, right? In I don't know how many in the other jurisdictions. So they are busy. So they might take a long time to come. So they know. So let's say the tenant, by the time the tenant moves out in February, is gone. Now, your arrears as of tomorrow is 18,000. Then December rent, January rent, February rent. Let's say another 6,000. So now it's 24,000. The tenant owed you, and the tenant is gone. How do you collect this money? A lot of people ask me, how do you collect this money? Unfortunately, I got to tell you the truth. Winning the lottery is better. Right? It's hard. But sometimes that's where the screening comes in. If your tenant is a policeman, if your tenant is a lawyer, if your tenant is a real estate agent, they're scared of their license. So you can track them where they are. Right? If it's a real estate agent, you can go to RICO and you can find out which brokerage they're working. You go to Facebook, they will be there advertising, I'm the biggest salesman, right? So you know where they are, right? But if they are kind of doing odd jobs, cleaning jobs, they're single mother, and you don't know where they go. So one of the things is now the Bill 184, the change the Bill 184 brought is before, if you had arrears of 24,000, I had to go to small claims court to collect that money. You don't have to get a judgment, but this order you change it to a judgment, and then you can collect it through the small claims court. Now, the Bill 184 brought a new application, notice application. It's called the N10. Yes, I think it's N10 or L10, N10 or L10. So they brought it where now you can go after your former tenant for 1 year to collect your rent. And you can go to the board and ask them to give an order. Before, the landlord and tenant board said, if the tenant is gone, we are not doing anything with the tenant. Now, with the Bill 184, they said, you can come to us. The tenant has moved out, not paying you, we will give you an order. Because your original order was 8,000. Now it's 24,000. So you can go to the board and say, give me an order for 24,000 for my former tenant. Right? And to do that, the board says, you got to serve this document and the notice of hearings 30 days before. So what you do is you file an N10 with the board. Say, the tenant was supposed to pay me 18,000 up to the date of hearing. The tenant moved out only in February. They add these two together and say to the board, now they owe me 24,000. I want you to give me an order to collect these 24,000. Right? Now, the board says, okay, you can do this, but you have to serve this N10 and the hearing date when they have to come to court to the former tenant 30 days before the hearing, because the board doesn't know where the former tenant is. You have to find out. Okay. So, but one of the ways the board said you can serve the former tenant is by email. So if you had collected the email on the very first time when you screen the tenant and ask the tenant, because if the Ontario new lease agreement has a space where the tenant agrees to give you notices by email. So that's where you do it. So you got it, then you send it by email. You don't have to search for this tenant. Because otherwise you come to me, say, I charge you, not me, but the cost is around $500. Sometimes you're wasting your time chasing after these people, right? Is the consent to communicate by email on the initial lease including phone? Any communication? Yes, that's what I answered, Faisal. Yes. So you get what I mean? On the another thing that they did with the 184 is on an N4, do not include anything other than rent. On an N4, it should only be rent, no utilities. So before 184, only way you can get utilities is by going to the small claims court. And it was not worth it. Because, utilities is, let's say, $300 a month. Even 1 year they didn't pay utilities is $3,600. You hire a paralegal, he's going to cost you like, it's going to cost you money. It's not cheap. So is it worth it? And the other way they had it was kind of a quasi way, N5, infringing on landlords' reasonable rights and enjoyment. It was a here and there. But under the N10 now, they have a column. Unfortunately, I can't show you, but there's a column where you can ask for utilities, even when the tenant is living there. But make sure you have all the dots. Like I see most of the time, tenant pays 60%, downstairs pays 40%, right? And how do you bill them? Okay. So you have an agreement, we have tenancy agreement where you say, the basement is rented, upstairs is rented, upstairs tenant pays 60%, downstairs tenant pays 40%. Most of the time the problem comes, you know how? The upstairs tenant says, we only 2 people. The workers are using more than us, right? Don't you get that complaint? Yes. Oh, they run the washer every day. We don't run the washer every day. You get all sorts of nonsense, right? Because if you don't have a separate meter, this is going to happen. So from the start, make sure you make the rules and you say 60%, 40%, the bill comes to me, I will make an invoice saying this is the bill from this date to this date, total bill is $600. Upstairs tenant pays 400. Here's the bill for him. Downstairs tenant pays this much. Document. This way you have a record. So when you file this N10, they are asking for that. Don't go to court, Kaivi Sama, Kaivi Su, and say, give me money. They're not going to give it. Document. Because as landlords, we got to do some work. It's a business. A lot of us think, buy a house, rent it out. The real estate agent will do everything. That's what landlords think. Landlord, agent is already It's not the landlord. You are the landlord. You are the one who is supposed to do these things, right? It's a business. Why landlords are not allowed to report credit like apartment building? Well, it's a question for the government. It's nothing to do with me. It's a credit reporting agency. They have their own rules, so they can do whatever they want. Like apartment building, also is just like normal landlords. So there's no difference in Ontario between a big landlord and a small landlord. The government of Ontario thinks all landlords are the same. There's no 2 rules. Number 1, there's no 2 rules. Whatever applies to Caprit, the biggest landlord in Ontario, applies to Subramanian, who has 1 basement apartment. Unfortunately, they have both come under the same law, Residential Tenancies Act. And everything goes from there. And it's a good thing and a bad thing. All right. So I have talked about the changes with regard to N10, the 184. What are the changes the government brought about? For the landlord, they brought this. You can go after your former tenant, even if he has vacated the place up to 1 year from the date of termination for any damages he did to your property. So now, it's easier said than done. How do you prove that they damaged the property? Number one question I ask landlords, when you gave the property, did you do an inspection? Did you get a pre-inspection report? When you go to rent a car, recently I went to BC, I rented a car, and then the guy comes around and looks at the car first before I get into the car, right? We both signed. I took the car in good condition, right? So when I returned the car, he again checks the car. Now here you gave it without checking. Nobody said anything about the condition. And now you come back after the tenant is gone and say you damaged this. What if the damage was not there before? So do a pre-inspection. The kitchen is in good condition, the washroom is in good condition, take pictures. This is the condition I gave you. So when you left, I take pictures again, and I can go in front of a judge and say, Madam Chair, here's the pictures when this tenant took occupancy on December 1st, 2020. Here's the pictures when the tenant left, after the day left, and make sure the pictures have date stamp. Because the judges are not there. They are not there to help you. They are there to help both everybody. They are narrow focus. Their view is like this, like a horse. They only look this way. So you got to give them the ammunition to bring it to them to my side. If I go to say you damaged it, who damaged it? Right? Make sure. And going after tenants after they left is a difficult process. You can still try it. And Bill 194 brought some changes to help landlords to go after former tenants. But number one, you as a landlord, act as a landlord, do what is required from the start. If you get a good tenant, no problem. If you get a bad tenant, or good tenants can become bad tenants because something happens in their lifetime, right? So make sure that this is some of the changes that they brought in 10. But they also, the 184 also brought some things that made it harder for landlords. They did this way and they did this way. You know, the government dances both sides, right? They will do this and that. So what did the government do? This is for the landlord they did. And also one more thing they did, very important thing, they did for the landlord. So when people, landlords come to me and say, oh, the government is always for the tenant. Hold on. Bus is not gone yet. I think the government is fair. Not that Doug Ford paid me today to come and say good things about the government, but I think they are fair. They had to balance. Another thing they did is because one of the things that happens is rent increases. So the old regime, the law, because some people didn't know what was happening before. They didn't know what the consequences of increasing rent without giving proper notice. So there's a proper way to increase rent. Of course, the pandemic stopped the rent increases for up to December of this year, right? Up to December of 2021. I'll come back to that. Vela, I'll come back to your question in a minute. So let me finish this. So the government has frozen rent up to December 31st of 2021. From January 1st, everybody can increase the rent. But the government says the legal way, or the landlord LTV, Residential Tenancies Act says the legal way to raise the rent is giving N1 notice. N1, that's number one. N1 notice with a 90-day time. So if any of you have not given a rent increase notice as of January 1st, the earliest time you can increase rent is if the rent starts on 1st of the month is December, January, February, March 1st. If you want to increase rent, you can issue a notice right now and N1 increase rent on March 1st. Okay? And it should be on an N1 notice. No text. No verbal agreement. No love letter. It's all done. Now it's dating software. Okay? Don't do that. Right? But, so what happens is, there was a case that came up where the landlord is a corporate landlord. He increased rent for 25 years without giving anyone notice. Okay? He increased rent for almost 25 years. I don't know the exact number, but it doesn't matter. If you need the case, I can give it to you. But this is what you got to understand in the basics. So this landlord increased rent for this couple for 25 years without giving any phone notice. So imagine for 25 years, how much the rent, say if they were paying $600, at the end of maybe 20 or 22 years, the rent was about $800. And the couple paid. So after 20 or 25 years, this is the funny part. The landlord said, I want to evict the tenant for my own use. So he brought in an N12 application and asked the tenants to move out because I'm going to live in that property. So the tenant said, okay, I will move out, but give me 4 months or something like that. They were reasonable. I lived here 20 years, you're kicking me out, give me some time, I will find. The landlord was belligerent. No, I'm going to tell you to go. Right? And they met a stupid guy like me, with the tenants. How much was the rent 20 years ago? What is it, 600? How much is the rent now? 800. Oh shit. Did they give you N1? No. Oh, wait a minute. I went, so whoever the person who acted for them, they went to court and said, this increase for 20 years is illegal. I think the rent areas came to about 35,000 that they overpaid. Because the law says you have to increase rent by giving an N1. So anything that was done without giving an N1 was illegal.
How do you prove that 20 years before that you give N1 like every year?
Yeah, you should have it. You as a landlord keep your records. At least for the last 5 years, you show, yeah, I have been giving, right? So now, wait a minute, this was the law before 184 was passed. This case happened before 184 was passed. So don't think that Ford did everything for the tenant. That Ford also did something for the landlord. So how many landlords are in trouble if this law existed? How many landlords I know increase rent on text, increase rent on verbal agreement, they give a love letter. I am going to increase your rent by this much. And the tenant also says, okay, right? Yes or no? We know that. We do this all the time. We don't know even about anyone. So what happened is, this was in existence. And a lot of tenants came to know about this case and took advantage. I myself, when landlords came to me before this 184 was passed, I asked the landlord, when did they come? How much rent are they paying? I said, okay, you got too much rent now. Give them back their arrears. Make it legal because you are in trouble. Your rent is illegal. They're paying 2,100, but you already started with 1,900. You didn't increase it properly. So we have to give them credit for that money so that we don't have a trouble, because if they raise it at the hearing and they're going to say this notice is invalid, we are going to look stupid. Now, Doug Ford, what he said is he said, if a tenant is living and has agreed to pay and has paid for 1 year increased rent, that is the rent. You don't need an N1, you don't need, as long as the tenant has agreed and he has paid for 1 year and he didn't make any complaint for 1 year, that becomes the legal rent. So this 20-year, 30 arrears thing kicked up. Right? So that is what he did for the landlord. So I have seen recently some tenants, they pay up to the 11th month and then they come back and say it's illegal rent. So what is the best way for you to do? Do the N1, give the 90 days. You're done. You're within the legal limits. But this is one may change that for them. Imagine if tenants come to know about this nonsense. How many landlords will pay back?
April 1st is the one increase, right? So not March 1st, right?
No, 90 days, Tambi. So if you after listening to me today, you're going to give your N1 to your client.
Yeah.
So the 90 days is going to start from December 1st, January 1st, February 1st. So the earliest you can increase is March 1st, right? But you got to do it right now, and you can mail it because you have 14 days plus from now, right? So you don't have to do it like you don't have to go, you can mail it and email it to them and say your rent is going to increase. And that way you're covered. If you're not under rent control, so there are some properties that are not under rent control. What are the properties that are not under rent control now? What's the rent control amount? Increased rent, 1.2%, right? But any unit that was not occupied as a rental unit as of November 15th, 2018 is not subject to rent control. They don't have rent control. Karan, is there some water?
Yeah, I can get you.
You go and get some. Talking too much. Sorry.
No, don't worry.
You made some coffee yesterday. Yeah. What time is it? 11? Yeah, then we stop at 11?
Oh, we can go on for a little bit more. Yeah,
that's fine. All right. There's a lot to cover, but I'll try and wrap it up. All right. So that was done. That was the rent increase. Oh, I talked about November 15, 2018. Not subject to 1.2. You can increase the rent any amount you want, but it's an N2 form. Okay? You can increase by any amount you want. Question, thank you. Okay. Tenant living month to month for 7 years, no increase. How do we inform tenant to vacate property for my use? So two different questions. All right, if you didn't increase for 7 years, too bad. Start increasing from now. And if it is the first of the month, it's for GS, I'm answering the question. Start increasing now from March 1st. And N12 is a different ball game. It'll take me a little bit more time because it's more complicated. That also is part of 184, but let me finish this train of thought. So N2, N1, and Kandan, how much time we have, Kandan? About, can I can go continue, it's okay? Because if I go to the N12, which is the contentious part, it's going to take a minute.
Definitely. Like, I'm sure we can have this discussion furthermore in other sessions.
Yes.
But another 10,
it may be too much to absorb as well for
Definitely.
other people. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
10, 15 minutes, definitely.
Yeah, 10, 15.
And if anyone has any questions, in
Come
case hey everyone, so in case we don't get to your question, feel free. I know that a couple of people have put their hands up. In case Raphael, he's in his train of thought, so he might miss your little hand signals there. Type it in the chat box, and also feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions as well.
Yeah, that'll be easier.
We'll continue it's 11 right now, so we'll continue for another 10 minutes or so.
10 minutes.
Okay,
All right.
give or take.
All right, I'll go quickly the changes on N12 because that relates to a question that somebody asked. How do you evict a tenant for N12? Now, evicting a tenant for N12 has been made a little bit more difficult with the 184. Because I remember I told you the Ford government did something for the landlords. You can go and collect rent after 1 year when they leave. You can, if the tenant paid you increased rent for 1 year, that is the official rent, right? He said you can go for damage deposit. You can ask for utilities, right? So they listened to this, landlords. But at the same time, they said, landlords are evicting tenants. Because in Ontario, you can only evict tenant for fault. If the tenant is not at fault, you cannot evict a tenant. I can live as long as I pay my rent on time, I keep my place clean, I don't make noise, I don't disturb other people, I don't use drugs, you know, which I'm not a good tenant for that. But still, you cannot evict a tenant. You can live there until you die. That's called no fault. You cannot evict a tenant for no fault. There's nothing. So the no fault eviction is only N12. I want to use it for myself. Or I want to demolish it. I want to make it a commercial, right? I want to make it entirely different. That's an N13. Now, a lot of landlords, because their rents all went up, they started using this N12, sometimes N13 Chikribugri to get their tenants out for lives. And the government said, I don't like that. Don't do that. So they made it harder for an N12. It was much easier. Now, if you're going to say, I'm going to go for my son, my daughter, my parents, my grandparents, you can only go up or down. You cannot go sideways. You cannot ask for your sister, your brother. No. You can only ask for your parents, grandparents, daughter, grandchildren. Go up, down. That's the only way. And better be true. Because if you're not truthful, if you're trying to circumvent this, because you don't like this tenant because he doesn't keep it clean, it's a low rent, be careful. Because the government made it harder, and the forms, their new N12 is even changed. They're asking, how many times did you do this for the last 2 years? They're looking at a history. They're looking at a pattern. And I can go into case laws, it's going to take much more time, but all I can tell you is be careful when you do that type of notice. When you come to me and you tell me, I say, you know what, because consequences can be heavy, up to 100,000, and you don't want to go there. All right. So somebody says, so how to inform tenant vacate the property? So I answered that question in the sense an N12 for your own use, but be truthful. How many properties you have? Be ready to answer questions at the hearing. How many properties you have? Why are you moving to this place? Why is your son moving to place? How old is your son? He's 19 years old. And how big is the house? 2,400 square feet. So why do you want a 19-year-old boy to occupy a 2,400 square feet house? Don't get caught there. Increase in amount would be property after November 15th, 2018. Or is it tenants moved out of no. Tenants moved out, it's any property you can increase. It's called vacancy decontrol. Even an old property, when the tenant moves out, the landlord can increase rents to any amount. It's called vacancy decontrol. But NDP is trying to force the government to take that away, but I don't think it will happen. Do we still need to give notice to increase the rent when you have a tenant sign a renewal lease agreement for the increased amount? Yes, hold on 1 second. Let me answer this. Sai, I'm coming back to you. Give me 1 second. Do we still, this is another funny one I get all the time. When a tenant signs a lease, that is the lease until he dies. Nobody renews a lease. Do you go to your wife and say every year I want to renew the lease? Or no, you don't, right? You don't. So you don't. A lease is a lease started, that's the original. Any lease signed after that is garbage. Rent increase is on N1 or N2, not a lease renewal. The only way a lease renewal can be done if there's a change of tenants or change of unit. Downstairs tenant moves upstairs. Change the lease. Tenants moved out, though added one more new person. That is a change in lease, but nothing else. The original lease stands. People come to me with 3 leases. Every year they renew the lease. So who the hell asked you to renew? Go give me only the one marriage certificate, that's all, for one wife. And she marries again. Okay. Thank you. This was very informative session. That's great. Thanks, Emmanuel. Okay, can your former tenants come after you up to a year if they determine that you in fact did not move into the? Yes, that is right. That's the 100,000 fine. All right. So what else I missed? N13 demolition is also another story. What else I have to say? Any more questions? I think we have another 10 minutes of questions. I can answer questions. Sai was asking a question. Come on, Sai, ask me the question. Okay, Jay Thaya, very good question. Jay Thaya is asking, then why does the lease agreement have dates if we only need one lease? So the lease agreement has a term, two things. When you sign a lease, you are signing two things. All right. One is the term, TERM. And underneath that, the lease doesn't say anything about it, but the act says, the law says, you also sign an agreement called tenancy. Two different things. Tenancy is for life, but the term says, when a tenant can move out without paying you any money. If you sign 1 year lease, and if the tenant says, I want to move in 6 months, then you have a case against the tenant and say, you know what, you signed a 1 year lease, you should stay here for 1 year, otherwise I'm going to lose money, or you find me another good tenant, right? That's what the term means. Tenancy is for life. The tenancy cannot be broken. Just because you sign a term doesn't mean the tenant gives away their right to tenancy. Tenancy is for life. All right, I answered that question, Tava. Okay, does N12 should be sent by mail? You can send any of these notices by any of the methods that are shown in the certificate of service. All notices can be served by any way.
Hello.
Yes, Celia.
So I just have a question. How long does it take to get a hearing at the landlord tenant board?
Well, it's all over the place. I have waited sometimes a year. Some are waiting from February until now, the last week I saw, and some we are getting in about 2 or 3 months. So it's all over the place. There's nothing that is concrete. We don't know. If somebody says, yes, we are going to get a hearing tomorrow, I think they are going to the astrologer, Satra.
And you also meant.
All I can tell you is the board is implementing a new system. It should be ready anytime soon, and they are not disclosing. They are saying they are doing a new system, but they are not telling us when it's going to be ready. If it is ready, then it could be quick. But one thing they are doing, they are scheduling a lot of hearings right now, about 70 sometimes. It's like a zoo if you go there in the morning. All right.
Also, you mentioned before that sheriffs were backed up even if you got the date for them to come evict, right?
Yes.
How far back are they backed up right now?
It depends on jurisdiction from each one. Toronto is different from Durham. Durham is different from York, right? The average is about 60 days.
Okay. And just last thing, I'm not a question, just telling people, because just my experience from some lease listings, like there's a lot of fake documents, and you'll see people make up fake websites, fake job letters, fake 1-800 numbers, fake everything. You have to verify super carefully right now, because in my last listing, I think I got 6 offers, only 1 was real. The rest were all fake.
I know, because the rents are too high, and it is a balancing act, and that's why I started off with my seminar today with saying screen. It is better to keep your property vacant for some time to find the right tenant than give it to the wrong tenant and suffer after.
100%.
Yes,
100%. Yeah.
that's what is the number one goal. Is Ontario lease form 2 mandatory on top of signing OREA? Yes, OREA form is for marketing purposes, but the Ontario government has mandated that we should have an Ontario lease agreement, which is a good thing. It's a basic thing because it at least standardizes how a lease should look like in Ontario. It gives you some of the basics. When is the lease starting? Who are the tenants? Who are the landlords? How are we going to give notices? What is included? Is it hydro included? Parking included? All that. It is very basic. And a landlord is supposed to give it within at minimum 30 days or 23 days, I'm not sure, of, and it's the landlord's responsibility to give the Ontario lease agreement to the tenant. The tenant doesn't have to ask for it. So if I'm acting for the tenants, I say, if he doesn't give, don't worry. And if you don't give it, you have to give them 1 month free rent if they come and ask you. If you want to get your tenants out by way of rent increase, there's no rental increase, and does the LTV have any issues with this? Their rent increase look very unreasonable. They didn't say what the increase should be, but I mean, I have not seen any cases that are, because these are all new. I don't think the LTV is going to say it's unreasonable, because the law didn't define, law says, like law thinks when they make that law, they think you're going to increase it to market rate, right? But the tenant has a right to argue that, and I don't think he's going to win it. But any increase that you say, if you increase by 500 and you say the property values have increased by 500 and rent, I think you have a good case. So I don't think you'll have a very big problem on that. Do we need to give them any time frame like 1 month or 2 months? Yes. N12 is 60 days. N13 is 120 days. N13 is for demolition. Yes.
Owner want to sell the house,
Yeah.
but tenant in there.
Yes.
But they don't want a tenant.
Yes.
There,
Yes.
and they are clean and pain and.
Yeah.
What are the steps?
Unfortunately, too bad, too sad. No answer. Pay the tenant. See, most of the time, you know, the N12 can be given if it's for your own use. N12 also can be given for purchaser's own use. But who is the purchaser? Is the question. Purchaser's own use. So you say, I want to sell the property, but it is for a purchaser's own use. I want to marry somebody, but I don't know who I'm going to marry. So how can I sign a marriage contract? I don't know. So you got to find the purchaser. You got to sign the binding purchase and sale agreement to say, here's my purchaser. He's the guy who's going to live there. Then only you can give notice. Just because you listed an MLS doesn't mean you can give a notice. Maybe the guy who's going to buy is going to keep the tenant. Who knows? We don't know. So the law says, purchaser own use, show me the binding purchases. So the best thing for you, if you sell it, just make sure that on the closing date, if the tenant doesn't move out, the new owners will assume the tenant and then they will evict the tenant. Otherwise, the seller is in for big SHIT. All right. I have seen some, at least in one case, 84,000 was paid to the tenant. 84,000. 84,000. Because they got to close the deal. Right? Because they didn't put the clause, simple clause. You will assume. But unfortunately, when you put these clauses, the buyers back out too. Right? Unfortunately. But make sure, and also get in the notice of agreement of purchase and sale, that the buyer will cooperate with the seller in issuing notices, coming to courts, attending hearings. Otherwise, you get what I'm saying? Damage deposit legal, you may answer, sorry, I was out of 2 minutes. Yeah, no, damage deposit not legal. The only legal thing that you can connect from somebody is the last month's rent. In a condo, if you pay the fees to the condo corporation for 4, that amount is collected. And it's, you got to return. All right, Kannan, I think.
Yeah, no, again, thank you so much.
No problem, anytime.
It's not going to be the last time you're going to be seeing him, because It's amazing how we have over 80 participants still in Zoom and a few more in person. Definitely, this is a topic that is well liked, and the fact that we have so many questions, some of them unfortunately were unanswered. I think we're going to be, if you're okay with it, we can have a part 2 of this session next week, so we can maintain the entire conversation and keep the flow smooth.
Bring your questions. That's the
exactly,
part, right?
exactly. If you can email me or text me, WhatsApp me your questions beforehand, or if we can also talk about scenarios, a scenario that you're going through, an issue that you're going through, and how Raphael can guide you through that process right now. That would be a unique aspect to it as well. So definitely bring me your ideas, bring me your questions, and we'll definitely, I think this is a good topic to continue for next week, since there's a lot more to discuss on this topic, right?
We can talk, we can talk. Yes, it's interesting too. It affects everybody in real life.
Definitely,
right?
definitely.
I only advocate for landlords. I very rarely do anything for tenants, because one of the reasons is not that because I don't like the tenants, it's because tenants get free advice. And tenants get very good legal advice. They are better lawyers, the government pays them, so they're very good. So if you're up against the tenants, be careful. You better be up against. Your game plan has to be up. If your opponent is strong, you got to be strong too, right? The most of the time, landlords take it easy. That's the problem. Anyway, it's a nice session. I enjoy teaching, and
definitely, and that's the best part, because he's going to be looking after the landlords, which is ideally our clients or ourselves as investors as well, right? So we're in good hands with Raphael here. Also, the way Raphael started the conversation with screening. If the rent is going to be $2,000 a month, you got to make sure that your tenant is earning 3 times that. There's a lot of responsibility on our end to make sure that we don't need to call Raphael for help. And of course, he's always here to help us, but as landlords, we got to make sure, as investors, as real estate agents, we got to make sure we're doing our part of the job.
That we are screening and we are doing the right thing. If I mentioned to you yesterday, if I ask your car, you're going to look at me and say, what the heck? Exactly. So make sure you do the same thing for your $1 million houses.
Perfect. All right, everyone. We'll see everyone next week. We'll go from there. We encourage people to come in to our class as well. Yeah, let's get everything back to how it was before. Cheers. Have a great day.
All right. 416-909-5533. Yes. Somebody's asking my phone number.
Thank you, Silvana.
You're welcome.